it's Emerald Lake. Hello. It's me, Raven, and next to me here on the little rock, that would be one of my frogs. I forgot to say anything in the last stream. He got his little introduction at the end of one of my gaming streams. But that's my little frog. There he is. He's fun. And I figure maybe I should show off a little bit and make it a frog party. Ooh, no? Oh, come along. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing enough yet. I guess I don't. And now you've seen the little adjustments things that popped up. I couldn't figure it out. I'm a little dum-dum. But it's okay. Oh, okay, Rose, you'll come back when you can. Oh, and I have to run an ad. I forgot to do that. Okay, we're gonna be reading tonight, but I guess I'll start an ad right now. Maybe I'll figure out my frog party in a minute. That's what we'll do. So, you shouldn't miss too much, Rose, but here we go with an ad first. Transition back. And why is my scene not showing up? I don't know how to bring on my frog. You're fine. I'll just bring in like you're supposed to be. There we go. One of my flowers is on my head. That's all. Alright. But here we are. We're back. We're gonna start with our readings. We're just doing a classic fairy tales reading tonight. We're back into the Red Fairy book. So we'll be reading more from there. It's been a while since we did, so it's about time. The first story that we have is called The Norka. Hi Tetra, hello. The first story is called The Norka, so we'll get started with that one. And as usual, submit your trigger redeem requests, and I will get to them in between stories. If you submit them while I'm reading, I'll just get to it as soon as I have a break, as opposed to us waiting for redeems. So, alright. Okay, here we go. The Norka. Oh, let's just scoot. Okay, there we go. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen. They had 3 sons, 2 of them with their wits about them, but the third a simpleton. Marvelous. Now the king had a deer park in which were quantities of wild animals of different kinds. Into that park there used to come a huge beast. Norka was its name. And there used to come huge beast and do fearful mischief. Interesting. Devouring some of the animals every night. The king did all he could, but he was unable to destroy it. So at last he called his sons together and said, "Whoever will destroy the Norka, to him I will give the half of my kingdom." Well, the eldest son undertook the task. Oh, sorry, Mike. Calm down, Mike arm. Okay. Well, the eldest son undertook the task. As soon as it was night, he took his weapons and set out. But before he reached the park, he went into a traktir. He went into a traktir. It's spelled Traktir. Ooh. And then it says in brackets, or tavern. And there he spent the whole night in revelry. When he came to his senses, it was too late. The day had already dawned. He felt himself disgraced in the eyes of his father, but there was no help for it. The next day the second son went and did just the same. Their father scolded them both soundly, and there was an end of it. Well, on the third day, the youngest son undertook the task. They all laughed him to scorn because he was so stupid, feeling sure he wouldn't do anything. But he took his arms and went straight into the park, and sat down on the grass in such a position that the moment he went asleep his weapons would prick him, and he would awake. Presently the midnight hour sounded. The earth began to shake, and the Norka came rushing up and burst right through the fence into the park. So huge was it. The prince pulled himself together, leapt to his feet, crossed himself, and went straight at the beast. It fled back, and the prince ran after it. But he soon saw that he couldn't catch it on foot, so he hastened to the stable, laid his hands on the best horse there, and set off in pursuit. Presently he came up with the beast, and they began a fight. They fought and fought. The prince gave the beast 3 wounds. At last they were both utterly exhausted, so they lay down to take a short rest. But the moment the prince closed his eyes, up jumped the beast and took to fight. The prince's horse awoke him. Up he jumped in a moment, and set off again in pursuit. Caught up the beast, and again began fighting with it. Again the prince gave the beast 3 wounds, and then he and the beast lay down to again rest. Thereupon away fled the beast as before. The prince caught it up and again gave it 3 wounds, but all of a sudden, just as the prince began chasing it for the 4th time, the beast fled to a great white stone. I apologize. Goodness. The beast fled to a great white stone, tilted it up, and escaped into the other world, crying out to the prince, "Then only will you overcome me when you enter here." Ooh, hi Natsu. I'm doing all right. How are you? How are you doing? The prince went home, told his father all that had happened, and asked him to have a leather rope plaited, long enough to reach the other world. His father ordered this to be done. When the rope was made, the prince called for his brothers, and he and they, having taken servants with them, and everything that was needed for a whole year, set out for the place where the beast had disappeared under the stone. Yawning attacks. Okay. They went under stone. When they got there, they built a palace on the spot and lived in it for some time. But when everything was ready, the youngest brother said to the others, "Now, brothers, who is going to lift this stone?" Neither of them could so much as stir it, but as soon as he touched it, away it flew to a distance, though it was ever so big as a hill. And when he had flung the stone aside, he spoke a second time to his brothers, saying, "Who is going to the other world to overcome the Norka?" Neither of them offered to do so. Then he laughed at them for being such cowards, and said, Well, brothers, farewell. Lower me into the other world, and don't go away from here, but as soon as the cord is jerked, pull it up. I have a feeling they're going to go off to the pub instead, just like before when they went off to the traktier, the tavern. But alright. Oh, I'm great, but I need to renew my sub. Ah, yes. I've gone way down in sub points, so I'll appreciate subs, but no big hurry, no rush. I'm just mildly worried I won't have space for all of the emotes I want to make. But that's something that I'll deal with as I actually make them. We're not quite there yet. Oh, yes. Okay. So he says, you guys gotta jerk up the cord or pull up the cord as soon as I jerk on it. His brothers lowered him accordingly, and when he had reached the other world, underneath the earth, he went on his way. He walked and walked. Presently he espied a horse with rich trappings, and it said to him, Hail, Prince Ivan! Long have I awaited thee. He mounted the horse and rode on, rode and rode, until he saw standing before him a palace made of copper. He entered the courtyard, tied up his horse, and went indoors. In one of the rooms a dinner was laid out. He sat down and dined, and then went into a bedroom. There he found a bed, on which he lay down to rest. Presently there came in a lady, more beautiful than can be imagined anywhere but in a fairy tale, who said, Thou who art in my house, name thyself. If thou art an old man, thou shalt be my father. If a middle-aged man, my brother. But if a young man, thou shalt be my husband dear. And if thou art a woman, and an old one, thou shalt be my grandmother. If middle-aged, my mother. And if a girl, thou shalt be my own sister. Interesting maths on that, but okay, moving along. Thereupon he came forth, and when she saw him, she was delighted with him, and said, Wherefore, O Prince Ivan, my husband dear shalt thou be? Wherefore hast thou come hither? Then he told her all that had happened, and she said, That beast which thou wishest to overcome is my brother. He is staying just now with my second sister, who lives not far from here in a silver palace. I bound up 3 of the wounds which thou didst give him. Ooh, I just paid my bills. I hate how expensive everything is. Ooh, brother, don't I agree. Everything's so much monies. And yet, not paid much monies. Okay, sorry. Oh, yes. Well, after this, they drank and enjoyed themselves, and held sweet converse together, and then the prince took leave of her, and went on to the second sister, the one who lived in the silver palace, and with her also he stayed a while. She told him that her brother Norka was then at her youngest sister's, so he went on to the youngest sister, who lived in a golden palace. She told him that her brother was at the time asleep on the blue sea, and she gave him a sword of steel and a draught of the water of strength, and she told him to cut off her brother's head at a single stroke, and when he had heard these things, he went his way. Gage is probably with, he's probably still in Vi's stream. Violet Spellcraft is doing a 12-hour charity stream right now. So, like, if you want to go do that. I actually told people to go check it out in my earlier stream. She's raising money, and it's also her birthday, so, like, go support her. If you want to come hang out with me, that's good too, but I will tell you to go do that for the good cause more than be here. But anyway, I think Cage is mostly over there right now. Or off to bed, because been doing too much today, but I don't know. Right. The sister says, go kill my brother. It's a bit interesting. Hey, yeah, go kill my brother. I just helped him with his wounds. Like, if it was like we're related, but somebody should kill that monster, I'd be doing, okay, I feel that. Or like, oh yes, my poor brother, I must help his wounds. But to do both at the same time. Pick a lane, lady. Do you want him dead or not? But okay. She says, I helped him, and then she says, go kill him. There's 3 sisters, but they don't seem on the same page. Anyway, or even themselves one at a time, cohesive. And when the prince came to the blue sea, he looked. There slept the Norka on a stone in the middle of the sea, and when it snored, the water was agitated for 7 miles around. Ooh. The prince crossed himself, went up to it, and smote it on the head with his sword. The head jumped off, saying the while, well, I'm done for now. For now. And rolled far away into the sea. After killing the beast, the prince went back again, picking up all 3 sisters by the way, with the intention of taking them out into the upper world, for they all loved him and would not be separated from him. Marvelous. That's not... Okay. Each of them turned her palace into an egg, for they were all enchantresses, and they taught him how to turn the eggs into palaces and back again, and they handed over the eggs to him. Okay. And then they all went to the place from which they had to be hoisted into the upper world. And when they came to where the rope was, the prince took hold of it and made the maidens fast to it. Then he jerked away at the rope, and his brothers began to haul it up. Okay, so they really did do their job and stayed there. Good for them. And when they had hauled it up and had set eyes on the wondrous maidens, they went aside and said, let's lower the rope, pull our brother part of the way up, and then cut the rope. Perhaps he'll be killed, but then if he isn't, he'll never give us these beauties as wives. Oh, he's lost in his art. Ooh. Hello, turtle. Hello. Good to see you. I was saying that he's probably at Vi's stream, which would be perfectly good too. Also, hello. Oh, okay. No, good. Vi's charity stream is a perfectly reasonable thing to go to instead today. Okay. Right, yes, okay. So they're planning to specifically kill their brother. Not just leave him behind, but kill him. So when they had agreed on this, they lowered the rope. Yawn will be the death of me. Okay. They lowered the rope, but their brother was no fool. He guessed what they were at, so he fastened the rope to a stone, and then gave it a pull. His brothers hoisted the stone to a great height, and then cut the rope. Down fell the stone and broke in pieces. The prince poured forth tears and went away. Well, he walked and walked. Presently a storm arose. The lightning flashed, the thunder roared, the rain fell in torrents. He went up to a tree in order to take shelter under it, and on that tree he saw some young birds, which were being thoroughly drenched. So he took off his coat and covered them over with it, and he himself sat down under the tree. Presently there came a flying bird, such a big one that the light was blotted out by it. It had been dark there before, but now it became darker still. Now this was the mother of those small birds which the prince had covered up, and when the bird had come flying up, she perceived that her little ones were covered over, and she said, "Who has wrapped up my nestlings?" And presently, seeing the prince, she added, "Didst thou do that? Thanks. In return, ask of me anything thou desirest. I will do anything for thee." "Then carry me into the other world," he replied. "Make me a large vessel with a portion in the middle," she said. "Catch all sorts of game and put them into one half of it, and into the other half pour water, so that there may be meat and drink for me." All this the prince did. Oh, he does do double duty all the time, so I doubt it's just because of ice stream. Fair, but still. Oh well, okay. Then the bird, having taken the vessel on her back, with the prince sitting in the middle of it, began to fly. And after flying some distance, she brought him to his journey's end, took leave of him, and flew away back. But he went to the house of a certain tailor, and engaged himself as a servant. So much the worse for wear was he, so thoroughly had he altered in appearance, that nobody would have suspected him of being a prince. Having entered into the service of his master, the prince began to ask what was going on in that country. And his master replied, "Our two princes, for the third one has disappeared, have brought away brides from the other world, and want to marry them, but those brides refuse, for they insist on having all their wedding clothes made for them first, exactly like those which they used to have in the other world, and that without being measured for them." Okay, so they want clothes, but they don't want to be measured, and it has to be like clothes from the other world. "The king has called all the workmen together, but not one of them will undertake to do it." The prince, having heard all this, said, "Go to the king, master, and tell him that you will provide everything that's in your line." "However can I undertake to make clothes of that sort? I work for quite common folks," says his master. "Go along, master, I will answer for everything," says the prince. So the tailor went. The king was delighted that at least one good workman had been found, and gave him as much money as ever he wanted. When his tailor had settled everything, he went home, and the prince said to him, "Now then, pray to God and lie down to sleep. Tomorrow all will be ready." And the tailor followed his lad's advice and went to bed. Midnight sounded. The prince arose, went out of the city into the fields, took out of his pocket the eggs which the maidens had given him, and, as they taught him, turned them into 3 palaces. Into each of those he entered, took the maidens' robes, went out again, turned the palaces back into eggs, and went home. And when he got there, he hung up the robes on the wall and lay down to sleep. Good way to cheat that. Good. Early in the morning his master awoke, and behold, there hung such robes as he had never seen before, all shining with gold and silver and precious stones. He was delighted, and he seized them and carried them off to the king. Carried them off to the king. When the princesses saw that the clothes were those which had been theirs in the other world, they guessed that Prince Ivan was in this world, so they exchanged glances with each other, but they held their peace. And the master, having handed over the clothes, went home, but he no longer found his dear journeyman there, for the prince had gone to a shoemaker's, and him too he sent to work for the king. And in the same way he went the round of all the artificers, and they all proffered him thanks, inasmuch as through him they were enriched by the king. Yes, they got free money there. By the time the princely workmen had gone the round of all the artificers, the princesses had received what they had asked for. All their clothes were just like what they had been in the other world. Then they wept bitterly because the prince had not come, and it was impossible for them to hold out any longer. It was necessary that they should be married. But when they were ready for the wedding, the youngest bride said to the king, "Allow me, my father, to go and give alms to the beggars." Turtle Boy. Oh, I think I did that just last stream, Turtle Boy. But I've got like just a little bit left to this story. Hold on. She says to the king, "Allow me to give alms to the beggars." He gave her leave, and she went and began bestowing alms upon them, and examining them closely. And when she had come to one of them, and was going to give him some money, she caught sight of the ring which she had given to the prince in the other world, and her sister's rings too, for it was really he. So she seized him by the hand and brought him into the hall and said to the king, "Here is he who brought us out of the other world. His brothers forbade us to say that he was alive, threatening to slay us if we did. Then the king was wroth with those sons and punished them as he thought best." Doesn't say how. And afterwards 3 weddings were celebrated. Doesn't say between who. Oh my gosh. So maybe all those sisters were married to the same prince. Maybe each sister got her own prince. Maybe the princes died. Maybe they didn't. But, there was 3 weddings, and those brothers were punished. Okay. All right. Yes, you. What was this one? And then that. Cool. Boop. That's going to cause issues if I don't get rid of that one. So, how Raven became black was the 2nd or 3rd? Technically 4th poem to last in the last stream. I did read it. It is done. I have read it. I'm sorry you were not there. You were in Vi's stream, but it's being put up on YouTube. I have it up. I haven't made it public. I have to do all the adjustments, and I'll be doing that when I upload this video's VOD up there. But it should be on Twitch for now, the VOD. But okay. We did read that one. I definitely appreciated that one. We were kind of giggling about there was 2 morals at the bottom of it, and that was interesting. Okay, great. Sorry we missed you for it. I'm sorry. But okay, now it's the triggers time, and we have dice. Okay. Just gonna take a second. All right, dice time. Okay, that was dice, and I'm gonna have to pick one up off the floor, but in my last roll, my D20 was a nat 1, and that sums up the sad choice that I did. Violence? Violence on Singing Frog? Or violence from the Lost Dice? Hello, LaHonk. Hello. We will do Singing Frog after I put the dice away. I'm going to collect the one that fell real quick. Woo! Okay. Lonk's entrance. Demands singing frog. Threatens violence with duck and frog. Saying violence. And then just a little hi. Hi. Hi, emote. Okay, here is... Oh, no, wait. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Singing frog. Here we go. And there was our singing frog. Okay. Big old wooden frog boy goes back to his little shelf. Alright. As we have no more redeems for now, I'll prep the next story. But please go ahead and drop a redeem if you wanted one before the next one. There's still a tiny bit of time. The next story is called The Wonderful Birch. Wonderful trees. Yes, trees are wonderful. Okay. The Wonderful Birch. No, that's not how you spell that. There we go. Alright, we'll move right into the next story. Alright. Once upon a time, there were a man and a woman who had an only daughter. Now it appeared that one of their sheep went astray, and they sent out to look for it, and searched, each in an different part of the wood. I think that might have been supposed to a different, or each in an different, but anyway, each in different part of the wood. Ooh, I've just now started the story. I will do the bubble wraps first thing in the next one. Okay, each in a different part of the wood. Then the good wife met a witch who said to her, "If you spit, you miserable creature, if you spit into the sheath of my knife, or if you run between my legs, I shall change you into a black sheep." So while they're looking for one of their sheep, this witch just suddenly threatens her about, "If you spit into my knife, or if you run between my legs, I'll change you." The woman neither spat, nor did she run between her legs, but yet the witch changed her into a sheep. Okay, rude. Then she made herself look exactly like the woman, and called out to the good man, "Ho, old man, Halla?" It's spelled Hallloa. Hallaloa? I have found the sheep already." The man thought the witch was really his wife, and he did not know that his wife was the sheep. So he went home with her, glad at heart because his sheep was found. When they were safe at home, the witch said to the man, "Look here, old man, we must really kill that sheep, lest it run away into the wood again." So what happened to the first sheep? Because now they brought home the wife as the sheep. Anyway, the man, who was a peaceable, quite sort of fellow, made no objections, but simply said, "Good, let us do so." The daughter, however, had overheard their talk, and she ran to the flock and lamented aloud, "Oh, dear little mother, they are going to slaughter you." How did you know that that was your mom? But okay. "Well then, if they do slaughter me," was the black sheep's answer, "eat you neither the meat nor the broth that is made of me, but gather all my bones and bury them by the edge of the field." Ah, one of these "gather the bits of me after I'm dead and I'll come back to life" stories, or get wishes from my remains stories. But okay. Gather and bury them by the edge of the field. Shortly after this, they took the black sheep from the flock and slaughtered it. The witch made peas soup of it. It spelt Pease, peas, as if the latter half of appease. Peas soup of it, and set it before the daughter. But the girl remembered her mother's warning. She did not touch the soup, but she carried the bones to the edge of the field and buried them there. And there sprang up on the spot a birch tree, a very lovely birch tree. All right. So we'll never know what happened to that first sheep, but okay. Yeah, the last E did not get dropped yet. And hello or holla, it was spelled Halloa, when and wherever this was from. Some time had passed away. Who can tell how long they might have been living there, when the witch, to whom a child had been born in the meantime, began to take an ill will to the man's daughter, so it's been at least 9 months, and to torment her in all sorts of ways. Now it happened that a great festival was to be held at the palace, and the king had commanded that all the people should be invited, and that this proclamation should be made: "Come, people all, poor and wretched, one and all, blind and crippled though ye be, mount your steeds or come by sea." And so they drove into the king's feast all the outcasts and the maimed and the halt and the blind. In the good man's house, too, preparations were made to go to the palace. The witch said to the man, "Go you in front, old man, with your youngest. I will give the elder girl work to keep her from being dull in our absence." So the man took the child and set out. But the witch kindled a fire on the hearth, threw a pot full of barley corns among the cinders, and said to the girl, "Ooh, very Cinderella early days." She says, "If you have not picked the barley out of the ashes and put it all back in the pot before nightfall, I shall eat you up." A little bit of a different turn. Then she hastened after the others, and the poor girl stayed at home and wept. She tried to be sure to pick up the grains of barley, but she soon saw how useless her labor was. Sorry. And so she went in her sore trouble to the birch tree on her mother's grave, and cried, because her mother lay dead beneath the sod and could help her no longer. In the midst of her grief she suddenly heard her mother's voice speak from the grave and say to her, "Why do you weep, little daughter?" "The witch has scattered barley corns on the hearth and bid me pick them up out of the ashes," said the girl. "That is why I weep, dear little mother." "Do not weep," said her mother consolingly. "Break off one of my branches and strike the hearth with it crosswise, and all will be put right."
No birds to help us this time. The girl did so. She struck the hearth with a birchen branch, and lo, the barley corns flew into the pot, and the hearth was clean. Then she went back to the birch tree, and laid the branch upon the grave. Then her mother bade her bathe on one side of the stern. No. Then her mother bade her bathe on one side of the stem, dry herself on another, and dress on the third. When the girl had done all that, she had grown so lovely that no one on earth could rival her. Splendid clothing was given to her, and a horse with hair partly of gold, partly of silver, and partly of something more precious still. The girl sprang into the saddle and rode as swift as an arrow into the palace. As she turned into the courtyard of the castle, the king's son came out to meet her, tied her steed to a pillar, and led her in. He never left her side as they passed through the castle rooms, and all the people gazed at her and wondered who the lovely maiden was, and from what castle she came. But no one knew her. No one knew anything about her. At the banquet, the prince invited her to sit next to him in the place of honor, but the witch's daughter gnawed the bones under the table. The prince did not see her, and thinking it was a dog, he gave her such a push with his foot that her arm was broken. Are you not sorry for the witch's daughter? It was not her fault that her mother was a witch. Oh, what a little trap there. The little story was interesting. Okay, sorry. Towards evening, the good man's daughter thought it was time to go home. But as she went, her ring caught on the latch of the door, for the king's son had it smeared with tar. She did not take time to pull it off, but hastily unfastening her horse from the pillar, she rode away beyond the castle walls as swift as an arrow. Arrived at home, she took off her clothes by the birch tree, left her horse standing there, and hastened to the place behind the stove. In a short time the man and the woman came home again too, and the witch said to the girl, "Ah, you poor thing, there you are to be sure. You don't know what fine times we have had at the palace. The king's son carried my daughter about, but the poor thing fell and broke her arm." The girl knew well how matters really stood, but she pretended to know nothing about it, and sat dumb behind the stove. And I guess Dad had nothing to say and didn't care that his wife was lying, or didn't know. What's with so many of the dads with these stepmoms being like, huh? Yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, they seem to be doing that all the time. Okay. The next day they were invited again to the king's banquet. This is very Cinderella meets those weird bone stories. They're so funny. Okay. Hey, old man, said the witch. Get on your clothes as quick as you can. We are bidden to the feast. Take you the child. I will give the other one work, lest she weary. Why can't your other daughter come? Why do you not care, Dad? Like, what? Why? She kindled a fire, threw a pot full of hemp seed among the ashes, and said to the girl, If you do not get this sorted and all the seed back into the pot, I shall kill you. Oh, no more threat of eating, just murder. Lahonk, you know what to put in the chat. If you do not get this, I'll kill you. The girl wept bitterly. Then she went to the birch tree. Yay, there it is. Oh, Fet and Lahonk. There we go. Another Fet. Oh, perfect. She went to the birch tree, washed herself on one side, and dried herself on the other. We stay seeking violence. And this time, still finer clothes were given to her, and a very beautiful steed. She broke off a branch of the birch tree, struck the hearth with it, so that the seeds flew into the pot, and then hastened to the castle. All the individual violences. Look at all these violences. Look at all the cuties. They're all cute. And then I like the little axolotl a lot. Okay, sorry. All right. She hastened to the castle. Again the king's son came out to meet her, tied her horse to a pillar, and led her into the banqueting hall. Go ahead and lurk, Lahong. Go ahead and lurk. At the feast, the girl sat next him in the place of honor, as she had done the day before. But the witch's daughter gnawed bones under the table, and the prince gave her a push by mistake, which broke her leg. He had never noticed her crawling about among the people's feet. She was, and this is all caps, very unlucky / poorly mannered, the small child, or poorly parented. Maybe the child shouldn't have been put in a place to be doing that all this time. Anyway. The good man's daughter hastened home again betimes, but the king's son had smeared the door posts with tar, and the girl's golden circlet stuck to it. She had not time to look for it, but sprang to the saddle and rode like an arrow to the birch tree. There she left her horse and her fine clothes, and said to her mother, "I have lost my circlet." Okay, but you didn't mention the ring last time. Okay. "I've lost my circlet at the castle. The doorpost was tarred, and it stuck fast." "And even had you lost 2 of them," answered the mother, "I would give you finer ones." Then the girl hastened home, and when her father came home from the feast with the witch, she was in her usual place behind the stove. Then the witch said to her, "You poor thing, what is there to see here compared with what we have seen at the palace?" "We" was all caps. "The king's son carried my daughter from one room to another. He let her fall, 'tis true, and my child's foot was broken." The man's daughter held her peace all the time and bruised herself about the hearth. Busied herself about the hearth. The night passed, and when the day began to dawn, the witch awakened her husband, crying, "Hi, get up, old man. We are bidden to the royal banquet." I think to some degree there's translations in the last couple that have just slightly too modern words, but maybe it's just that this was where these started popping up. I don't know. We are bidden to the royal banquet. So the old man got up. Then the witch gave him the child, saying, "Take you the little one. I will give the other girl work to do, else she will weary at home alone." She did as usual. This time it was a dish of milk she poured upon the ashes, saying, "If you did not get all the milk into the dish again before I come home, you will suffer for it." Physically, how does that happen? How is the witch thinking that she would manage that? That's just, hey, I spilled the milk and now you're going to be the one to suffer, because that doesn't work. You don't put milk into a fire. No. What? Or it's on the ashes, but still, you wouldn't have just milk. You wouldn't be able to. Oh my gosh. Okay. How frightened the girl was this time. She ran to the birch tree, and by its magic power, her task was accomplished. And then she rode away to the palace as before. When she got to the courtyard, she found the prince waiting for her. He led her into the hall, where she was highly honored, but the witch's daughter sucked the bones under the table, and crouching at people's feet, she got an eye knocked out. Damn. But it says, "An eye knocked out, poor thing." Now no one knew any more than before about the good man's daughter. No one knew whence she came, but the prince had had the threshold smeared with tar. And as she... does this not affect anybody else? What? Other people would be affected by all that tar. Okay. And as she fled, her gold slippers stuck to it. She reached the birch tree, and laying aside her finery, she said, "Alas, dear little mother, I have lost my gold slippers." "Let them be," was her mother's reply. "If you need them, I shall give you finer ones." Scarcely was she in her usual place behind the stove when her father came home with the witch. Immediately the witch began to mock her, saying, "Ah, you poor thing, there is nothing for you to see here. And what great things we have seen at the palace. My little girl was carried about again, but had the ill luck to fall and get her eye knocked out. You stupid thing, you, what do you know about anything?" Yes, indeed, what can I know? Replied the girl. I had enough to do to get the hearth clean. Now the prince had kept all the things the girl had lost, and he soon set about finding the owner of them. For this purpose, a great banquet was given on the 4th day, and all the people were invited to the palace. The witch got ready to go too. She tied a wooden beetle on where her child's foot should have been, a log of wood instead of an arm. So I'm sorry, when they broke her limbs, she lost those limbs? Or are these supposed to be splints? Because it said where her foot should have been. Oh my gosh. Anyway, and stuck a bit of dirt in the empty socket for an eye. Considering how recent that wound is, I don't think any dirt should be going anywhere, but okay. And took the child with her to the castle. When all the people were gathered together, the king's son... Oh, so no task for the good daughter, though. Okay. The king's son stepped in among the crowd and cried, "The maiden whose finger this ring slips over, whose head this golden hoop encircles, and whose foot this shoe fits, shall be my bride." Okay, so now we've got 3 things instead of just the shoes to test on. What a great trying on there was now among them all. The things would fit no one, however. Really? You couldn't get like, oh, well, it fits my finger, but not my foot, and that fits my head, but not my finger. No, not that? Okay. "The cinder wench is not here," said the prince at last. Why would you call her cinder wench? Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Anyway. In the other stories, there's like explanations that like, we make fun of her because she hangs out in the ashes. But okay. He's gonna call her dirty? Freaking rude. Go and fetch her and let her try on the things. So the girl was fetched. Well, where was she fetched from? And how did... If they knew that that's her, then like... What the heck? I'm so confused. Oh, hello. What's crack-a-lackin'? Slime? Fun. Not much reading fairy tales, but thank you for the follow. I'm whatever's random. Fun. Thank you. Welcome in. Welcome. Okay. A little bit of a plot hole here that they're like, go fetch that girl. That is clearly the girl that these are for. If you knew who she was, why did you not just go to her? Anyway. Okay, so the girl was fetched and the prince was just going to hand the ornaments to her when the witch held him back, saying, "Don't give them to her. She soils everything with cinders. Give them to my daughter, rather." Well, the prince gave the witch's daughter the ring, and the woman filed and pared away at her daughter's finger till the ring fitted. Ugh. It was the same with the circlet and the shoes of gold. The witch would not allow them to be handed to the cinder wench. She worked at her own daughter's head and feet till she got the things forced on. What was to be done now? The prince had to take the witch's daughter for his bride, who, as far as I can tell, is like a baby? So, like, obviously is not going to be the young woman? Like, what? This isn't how this works. This is not any logic using, but okay. And just casually saying that she filed down her finger. So, like, okay. Just chopping up her daughter again, who's already missing a foot, who I guess when she broke her leg and arm, she just chopped those limbs off, but okay, fine. Oh my gosh. What was to be done now? The prince had to take the witch's daughter for his bride, whether he would or no. He sneaked away to her father's house with her, however, for he was ashamed to hold the wedding festivities at the palace with so strange a bride. How are you not... Okay. Some days passed, and at last he had to take his bride home to the palace, and he got ready to do so. Just as they were taking leave, the kitchen wench sprang down from her place by the stove, on the pretext of fetching something from the cow-house, And in going by, she whispered in the prince's ear as he stood in the yard, "Alas, dear prince, do not rob me of my silver and my gold." Ooh. Thereupon the king's son recognized the cinder wench, so he took both the girls with him, and set out. After they had gone some little way, they came to the bank of a river, and the prince threw the witch's daughter across to serve as a bridge. What? And so got over with the cinder wench. There lay the witch's daughter then like a bridge over the river, and could not stir, though her heart was consumed with grief. No help was near, so she cried at last in her anguish, "May there grow a golden hemlock out of my body. Perhaps my mother will know me by that token." Scarcely had she spoken when a golden hemlock sprang up from her and stood upon the bridge. But she is the bridge. Did this baby... Okay, they did say that they didn't know how much time had passed, so maybe she's like still a young girl, but like there's a decided age gap between the cinder wench and the girl, isn't there? Unless it has been a very, very long time. For children, and they're both adults at this point. This is... What? Okay. And yeah, she, either way, whatever her size, she is speaking and such, she became the bridge and then grew herself as a golden hemlock from herself. But her body that was a person is now wood, and then the hemlock is also her. What? Okay. Now, as soon as the prince had gotten rid of the witch's daughter, why did you have to take them both? Why did you not notice the other one? But okay. He greeted the cinder wench as his bride, and they wandered together to the birch tree which grew upon the mother's grave. Violence, or in this case, he just kind of... Like, it doesn't sound like it was terribly violent. It was just like, "And now you're a bridge." And she's like, "I'm a bridge." And then she's like, "Oh, wait, no." Like, what is happening? Anyway, okay. Sure. They went to the birch tree which grew upon the mother's grave. Right. There they received all sorts of treasures and riches, 3 sacks full of gold, and as much silver, and a splendid steed, which bore them home to the palace. There they lived a long time together, and the young wife bore a son to the prince. Immediately word was brought to the witch that her daughter had borne a son, for they all believed the young king's wife to be the witch's daughter. And no one cares that they had also taken the other girl? No one cares? You would think that this witch wouldn't want her to go, considering she wouldn't let her go to the frickin' ball. But oh my god, I don't understand. Hi, Cage. This is just okay. So, said the witch to herself, "I had better away with my gift for the infant, then." "I guess so." And so saying, she set out. Yeah, the logic in this story is something. So saying, she set out. Thus it happened that she came to the bank of the river, and there she saw the beautiful golden hemlock growing in the middle of the bridge. And when she began to cut it down to take to her grandchild, she heard a voice moaning, "Alas, dear mother, do not cut me so." "Are you here?" demanded the witch. "Indeed I am, dear little mother," answered the daughter. "They threw me across the river to make a bridge of me." In a moment the witch had the bridge shivered to atoms, and then she hastened away to the place. So she destroyed the bridge? Despite... What? So her daughter says, "Hey, don't cut me." She's like, "You?" No worries, Cage. And then she says... What? Wait. Mom, don't kill me. Oh, wait, you're my daughter? Yes, it's me. They made me a bridge. Destroys said bridge, that is her daughter. What? Okay. Stepping up to the young queen's bed. Oh, yeah, she had it and then hastened away to the palace. Stepping up to the young queen's bed, she began to try her magic arts upon her. So you could just walk into her bedroom? What? It's a palace. There's really just no security at all. No one cares with this random lady. Okay, fine. She walks up to the young queen's bed and she began to try her magic arts upon her, saying, "Spit, you wretch, on the blade of my knife. Bewitch my knife's blade before me, and I shall change you into a reindeer of the forest." "Are you there again to bring trouble upon me?" said the young woman. She neither spat nor did anything else, but still the witch changed her into a reindeer and smuggled her own daughter into her place as the prince's wife. But now the child grew restless and cried because it missed its mother's care. Okay, so when she shivered to atoms the bridge, she just turned the bridge back into her daughter? And then her daughter into the form of the other wife? Or is just like, hey, have this wife now? Because I don't understand. Okay. Okay. Changed her into a reindeer, smuggled her own daughter into her place, the prince's wife, but now the child grew restless and cried because it missed its mother's care. They took it to the court and tried to pacify it in every conceivable way, but its crying never ceased. "What makes the child so restless?" asked the prince, and he went to a wise widow woman to ask her advice. Your own wife is not at home," said the widow woman. "She is living like a reindeer in the wood. You have the witch's daughter for a wife now, and the witch herself for a mother-in-law." Well, yeah, technically, he never married the woman that he had the kid with. He married the woman he turned into a bridge. But then he just, said it was the other woman when he got there. I don't... Okay. All right. So you have the witch was always his mother-in-law, but sure, you have also the witch herself for a mother-in-law. "Is there any way of getting my own wife back from the wood again?" asked the prince. "Hello, Brazos. But hello. Sorry, it's an English chat if that is supposed to be slang of another language. I don't understand it. So, if you want to chat, I'm gonna need English just so I know what's happening. But hello, welcome in. Good to have you. No worries. It's just I'm not gonna know. That's all. Okay. Give me the child, answered the widow woman. All right. I'll take it with me tomorrow when I go to drive the cows to the wood. I'll make a rustling among the birch leaves and a trembling among the aspens. Perhaps the boy will grow quiet when he hears it. Your wife's a reindeer now, by the way, but I'm just going to take your kid and hopefully the trees will make it happy. The baby happy. Yeah? Don't worry about your wife being a reindeer. Live with it. Sure, okay. What? Okay. Yes, take the child away. Take it to the wood with you to quiet it, said the prince, and he led the widow woman into the castle. How now, you are going to send the child away to the wood, said the witch in a suspicious tone, and tried to interfere. But the king's son stood firm by what he had commanded and said, Carry that child about the wood, perhaps that will pacify it. So the widow woman took the child into the wood. She came to the edge of a marsh, and seeing a herd of reindeer there, she began all at once to sing. Okay, this is going to be an interesting little thing. How was the night? So far, so good. We're still going. We'll be here for a while. It's not done yet, but so far, so good. I hope yours was good too. Yes, little bright eyes, little red skin, come nurse the child you bore. That bloodthirsty monster, that man-eater grim, shall nurse him, shall tend him no more. They may threaten and force as they will, he turns from her, shrinks from her still. So I'm sorry, who's the bloodthirsty monster that was trying to nurse the baby? Is that her sister? Is it the witch? Why would the witch be the one trying to? And since when are they a man-eater? Grim? Oh my gosh. Anyway, whew. Immediately the reindeer drew near and nursed and tended the child the whole day long. But at nightfall it had to follow the herd, and said to the widow woman, "Bring me the child tomorrow, and again the following day. After that I must wander with the herd far away to other lands." We're not going to even try to save Mom. And why does she have to live as a reindeer, like with the herd? Why can't she live like protected in the kingdom? I don't. Where is anybody's logic? Where did it go? It's all gone. Okay. Immediately bring her tomorrow. The following morning the widow woman went back to the castle to fetch the child. The witch interfered, of course, but the prince said, "Hello, Ari and..." Yeah, sure. Okay, it's hard for me to find the splits in the words. Ari and her autism. Ari and her autism. There we go. Hello, I am radioactive, dear lady. Hello, welcome in. Hello. Okay. Witch tried to interfere, but the prince said, "Take it and carry it about the open air. The boy is quieter at night." Sorry. Ooh, attacking by yawn. The boy is quieter at night, to be sure, when he has been in the wood all day. So the widow took the child in her arms and carried it to the marsh in the forest. There she sang, as on the preceding day. Again, this heck of a song. "Little Bright Eyes, little Redskin, come nurse the child you bore. That bloodthirsty monster, that man-eater grim, shall nurse him, shall tend him no more. They may threaten and force as they will, he turns from her, shrinks from her still." And immediately the reindeer left the herd and came to the child, and tended it as on the day before. And so it was that the child throve till not a finer boy was to be seen anywhere. But the king's son had been pondering over all these things, and he said to the widow woman, "Is there no way of changing the reindeer into a human being again?" How long did that take? He's he's thriving. But how old is he now, and how long? So therefore, how long did it take for them to think about the reindeer back to a human thing? And didn't she say just before that she had to leave after that day? Like she said, "Bring him back tomorrow," but the day after I have to go off to another land, didn't she? "Bring the child tomorrow, and again the following day. After that, I must wander with the herd far away." So, like, this is the tomorrow she referenced, and there's one more day after that, but then she has to go. So, if this isn't just day 3 total, this is... What? Okay. Is there no way to bring her back, says the prince. "I don't rightly know," was her answer. "Come to the wood with me, however, when the woman puts off her reindeer skin." She can take off her reindeer skin? What? "I shall comb her head for her. Whilst I am doing so, you must burn the skin." You would think that she would choose to not be in reindeer skin then, but okay, again, none logic, none. Thereupon they both went to the wood with the child. Scarcely were they there when the reindeer appeared and nursed the child as before. Then the widow woman said to the reindeer, "Since you are going far away tomorrow..." Yeah, okay, so it was only one day. And he throve, and was not a finer boy to be seen anywhere. All happened in just the one nursing session? What? Okay. Hi, Miss Marbles. I do have root beer today, but no Pringles. Okay. They're doing this. "Since you are going away tomorrow and I shall not see you, let me comb your head for the last time as a remembrance of you." Good. The young woman stripped off the reindeer skin and let the widow woman do as she wished. In the meantime, the king's son threw the reindeer skin into the fire unobserved. "What smells of singeing here?" asked the young woman, and looking round she saw her own husband. "Woe is me, you have burnt my skin. Why did you do that?" "To give you back your human form again." "You mean what I'm actively in at this moment? What the heck?" Nothing makes sense. "Alack a day, I have nothing to cover me now, poor creature that I am," cried the young woman, and transformed herself first into a distaff, then into a wooden beetle, then into a spindle, and into all imaginable shapes. But all these shapes the king's son went on destroying, till she stood before him in human form again. Why is she choosing not? What is happening? Okay. "Alas, wherefore take me home with you again," cried the young woman, "since the witch is sure to eat me up?" It has a question mark, but it doesn't make sense. Okay. "She will not eat you up," answered her husband, and they started for home with the child. "How do we know that she won't eat you up?" "What?" "But when the witch saw them, she ran away with her daughter, and if she has not stopped running, she is running still, though at a great age." "And the prince and his wife and the baby lived happily ever afterwards." I'm so consistently confused. Oh my gosh. What? Alrighty, fine. The end. Yep, those were word all right. Pretty much. Press start O2. Pretty much. That's it. That's all we have for you. Huh. But okay, we're gonna move on to redeems. I see we've got dice and singing frog and bubble wraps and humming. We've got lots to do, so I'm just gonna move on. What the heck was that? Ooh. Rats with cheese. Thank you for the follow, Ari and her autism. Thank you very much. I will take this dice roll as my next perception check. Ooh, okay, then I will, as I take the dice out when I get to that, I will. Ooh. Did you hear that pop? That was my sternum. Okay. That's been a while since we had that one pop. But I have bubble wraps first that we do. But okay. Okay. Here we go.
And that might be the end of this sheet. Let's try. Ooh. Same here, press start. I would like some too. Okay. That is all of that particular sheet of bubble wrap can do. So we'll move on to dice. Haha. Hello to the Von IXI LXL. Welcome in. Hello, Panaxios. Hello. Greetings to you, also a new person. Yes. Okay. I'm just gonna get to dice now. And yeah, let's see the first roll that we do. If you have a d12, that's what I need rolled. Ooh, what do we have? What do we have? That's a 6. That's a 4. That's 10, isn't that? Brain count. Yeah, that's 10. This is a d12. I've got it. Okay. I'll roll it and I'll tell you what the 20 and the 12 tell you guys, okay? So I'll roll these quickly. All of the dice at once, and I'll tell you what the d20 and the d12 both say. Okay, here we go. D20 says 8. D12 says 10. So there you go. Okay, here's the rest of this. Okay, bye Darkstorm. We'll see you another time. Noise the table is human legs. Okay. Yeah. Alright. Alright. This time we got an 18. And on the 12 was an 11. You rolled a 2 on your d20? Oh. I rolled 6 and 7 and 7 and 1 and 10 on the others. But okay. We'll put away the dice. And what do we have next? Oh, yes. Another singing frog before some humming. Let's put these away. I had advantage on the d12. Luckily, I didn't need it. Yeah, that was a good one. Very straightforward with the human legs. Okay. Right. Frog. Well, not frog. Frog. You're not a little radioactive ribbiter. Okay. Here we go. And there was our singing frog. He sang real well today. Done a few sings. Hello, Laxon. Hello. And now we have a classic. Okay. I'm just gonna hydrate a tad before. Okay. And there was your humming. Hi, Brady. Ari, yeah, well, it's one of my triggers, one of the redeems. So whenever it's redeemed, you do. Okay. The next story we'll be getting to is another version of Jack and the Beanstalk. So we'll put that up. Ah. There we go. And it'll be probably very, very similar to the version I've already read on here, but it looks like it's at least formatted a little bit different, so oh well. The stove guy and the chicken? What? Huh? My mic got bumped. What the heck?
Okay. Sometimes it does that. I don't know why. It'll just garble itself up. Doesn't make sense. But thank you for saying that. Like, the sound changed. Because if you don't tell me, I'll be like, just rambling, just reading my stuff along. And then I won't know when I needed to go back to. Like, if you told me halfway through my story that it had been muted the whole time or for the last 3 paragraphs, I wouldn't know where to pick it up. But okay. Yes, Jack and the Beanstalk, not the hedgehog dude, Jack. That was such a freaking story. That was such a freaking story. And that we found photos, that was crazy. Yeah, since a bit after the humming, I think, I figured you were just distracted a moment. No, that was Mike being weird. But anyway, or rather, my OBS system's being weird because the mic doesn't really change. It's just that the settings are like, I don't know. I don't like you right now. Then I don't like you. Just a little bit. Not really. I don't mean it. Don't get mad at me, OBS, please. Okay. All right. Raven's off on her own world again. Anyway. Here we go. Jack and the Beanstalk. All right. It has little chapter titles. Usually the chapter titles in these stories have just been numbers, but this time it's your world. The frogs just live in it. Well, I told Vi, and based on someone jumping in here saying that I was a radioactive deer lady or something, I have a feeling she talked about it in her stream. So my point was that I was going to tell the story of the frogs soon, but I haven't put it together. I want to read it like a proper story like these do. So it was me about the radioactive deer. Yep, that's it. And I like your little clown. It's very cute. I know that clowning is supposed to like mean something that's like a derogatory, but look at this pretty little clown makeup. That's gorgeous hair. I love it. I love it. And a little red nose. That's so fun. Anyway, okay, sorry. Okay. My thing that I was saying before this. Oh yeah, I'm gonna tell the story of the frogs soon. And I'll make sure that it's up and people can enjoy it. It'll be good. I'm excited. It'll be one of the stories I read. Clown Nose ASMR. Yes, there's the versions of the noses that sound like the fluff that goes on the end of a microphone. You know, the squishy stuff. And then there's the versions that actually squeak. That's fun too. Anyway. No, I don't know them from Vice streams, so I think that was all of them. Well, cool for you. You just jumped in and called me radioactive. I like it. That's it. That's it. I'm here for it. It's really my frogs are radioactive, but I do hang out with them a lot. Okay, here we go. Jack and the Beanstalk. It has like chapter titles that we've seen in other ones that are just the numbers usually. They're like Roman numerals at the top normally. But this time it has all caps actual titles. So that's fun. Here we go. Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack sells the cow. Once upon a time there was a poor widow who lived in a little cottage with her only son Jack. Jack was a giddy, thoughtless boy, but very kind-hearted and affectionate. There had been a hard winter, and after it the poor woman had suffered from fever and ague. Ague? I will have to look it up. Woohoo. She suffered fever and ague. Jack did no work as yet, and by degrees they grew dreadfully poor. The widow saw that there was no means of keeping Jack and herself from starvation but by selling her cow. So one morning she said to her son, "I am too weak to go myself, Jack, so you must take the cow to market for me and sell her." Jack liked going to market to sell the cow very much, but as he was on the way he met a butcher who had some beautiful beans in his hand. Jack stopped to look at them, and the butcher told the boy that they were of great value and persuaded the silly lad to sell the cow for those beans. I want to interject to say, normally it's not a butcher. At least in modern times, they say it's like a random man, and because he has magic beans, maybe you think he's a wizard or whatever. You have the thought that maybe the cow gets to live on in some weird magic life. Nope, not in this one. It's pretty clear what's going to happen to that cow. Oh well, okay. When he brought them home, precisely, I like it. LaHonk, look at that one. It's an adorable violence. I like it. Okay. Yes? No. Well, this, there. When he brought them home to his mother, instead of the money she expected for her nice cow, when he brought them home, beans, home to his mother instead of the money she expected for her nice cow, she was very vexed and shed many tears, scolding Jack for his folly. He was very sorry, and mother and son went to bed very sadly that night. Their last hope seemed gone. At daybreak, Jack rose and went out into the garden. At least, he thought, I will sow the wonderful beans. Mother says that they are just common scarlet runners and nothing else, but I may as well sow them. So he took a piece of stick and made some holes in the ground and put in the beans. That day they had very little dinner and went sadly to bed, knowing that for the next day there would be none, and Jack, unable to sleep from grief and vexation, got up at day-dawn and went out into the garden. What was his amazement to find that the beans had grown up in the night and climbed up and up till they covered the high cliff that sheltered the cottage, and disappeared above it. The stalks had twined and twisted themselves together till they formed quite a ladder. It would be easy to climb it, thought Jack. And having thought of the experiment, he at once resolved to carry it out, for Jack was a good climber. However, after his last mistake about the cow, he thought he had better consult his mother first. Wonderful growth of the beanstalk. That's the next chapter. So Jack called his mother, and they both gazed in silent wonder at the beanstalk, which was not only of great height, but was thick enough to bear Jack's weight. I wonder where it ends, said Jack to his mother. I think I will climb up and see. His mother wished him not to venture up this strange ladder, but Jack coaxed her to give her consent for the attempt, for he was certain there must be something wonderful in the beanstalk. So at last she yielded to his wishes. Jack instantly began to climb, and went up and up on the ladder, like Bean, till everything he had left behind him, the cottage, the village, and even the small church tower, looked quite little, and still he could not see to the top of the beanstalk. Jack felt a little tired, and thought for a moment that he would go back again. But he was a very persevering boy, and he knew that the way to succeed in anything is not to give up. So after resting for a moment, he went on. After climbing higher and higher, till he grew afraid to look down for fear he should be giddy, Jack at last reached the top of the beanstalk and found himself in a beautiful country, finely wooded with beautiful meadows, covered with sheep. A crystal stream ran through the pastures. Not far from the place where he had got off the beanstalk stood a fine, strong castle. Jack wondered very much that he had never heard of or seen this castle before. But when he reflected on the subject, he saw that it was much separated from the village by the perpendicular rock on which it stood as if it were another land. While Jack was standing looking at the castle, a very strange-looking woman came out of the wood and advanced toward him. She wore a pointed cap of quilted red satin, turned up with ermine. Her hair streamed loose over her shoulders, and she walked with a staff. Jack took off his cap and made her a bow. "If you please, madam," said he, "is this your house?" "No," said the old lady. "Listen, and I will tell you the story of that castle." Once upon a time there was a noble knight who lived in this castle, which is on the borders of Fairyland. He had a fair and beloved wife and several lovely children. And as his neighbors, the little people, were very friendly towards him, they bestowed on him many excellent and precious gifts. The little people almost always referring to general fairy kind. They bestowed him many gifts. Yeah. Rumor whispered of these treasures, and a monstrous giant who lived at no great distance, and who was a very wicked being, resolved to obtain possession of them. So he bribed a false servant to let him inside the castle, when the knight was in bed and asleep, and he killed him as he lay. Then he went to the part of the castle which was the nursery, and also killed all the poor little ones he found there. Happily for her, the lady was not to be found. She had gone with her infant son, who was only 2 or 3 months old, to visit her old nurse, who lived in the valley, and she had been detained all night there by a storm. The next morning, as soon as it was light, one of the servants at the castle, who had managed to escape, came to tell the poor lady of the sad fate of her husband and her pretty babes. She could scarcely believe him at first, and was eager at once to go back and share the fate of her dear ones. But the old nurse, with many tears, besought her to remember that she had still a child, and that it was her duty to preserve her life for the sake of the poor innocent. Yeah, the fairy tales often have something dark and often something that doesn't translate very well in the modern times, so brace yourself for the nonsense with these. But anyway, you still have to look after the poor innocent. The lady yielded to this reasoning and consented to remain at her nurse's house as the best place of concealment, for the servant told her that the giant had vowed, if he could find her, he would kill both her and her baby. Years rolled on. The old nurse died, leaving her cottage and the few articles of furniture it contained to her poor lady, who dwelt in it, working as a peasant for her daily bread. Her spinning wheel and the milk of the cow, which she had purchased with the little money she had with her, sufficed for the scanty subsistence of herself and her little son. There was a nice little garden attached to the cottage in which they cultivated peas, beans, and cabbages, and the lady was not ashamed to go out at harvest time and glean in the fields to supply her little son's wants. Jack, that poor lady is your mother. This castle was once your father's and must again be yours. This is a new spin on this. I'm here for it. Jack uttered a cry of surprise. My mother? Oh, madam, what ought I to do? My poor father, my dear mother! Your duty requires you to win it back for your mother, but the task is a very difficult one and full of peril, Jack. Have you courage to undertake it? I fear nothing when I am doing right, said Jack. Then, said the lady in the red cap, you are one of those who slay giants. You must get into the castle, and if possible, possess yourself of a hen that lays golden eggs and a harp that talks. Remember, all the giant possesses is really yours. As she ceased speaking, the lady of the red hat suddenly disappeared, and of course Jack knew she was a fairy. Jack determined at once to attempt the adventure, so he advanced and blew the horn which hung at the castle portal. The door was opened in a minute or two by a frightful giantess, with one great eye in the middle of her forehead. As soon as Jack saw her, he turned to run away, but she caught him and dragged him into the castle. Now I want an alternative story where Jack sells beans for a magical cow. That sounds fun. Okay. Ho, ho, she laughed terribly. You didn't expect to see me here, that is clear. No, I shan't let you go again. I am weary of my life. I am so overworked, and I don't see why I should not have a page as well as other ladies. And you shall be my boy. You shall clean the knives and black the boots, and make the fires, and help me generally when the giant is out. When he is at home I must hide you, for he has eaten up all my pages hitherto, and you would be a dainty morsel, my little lad." While she spoke, she dragged Jack right into the castle. The poor boy was very much frightened, as I am sure you and I would have been in his place. But he remembered that fear disgraces a man, so he struggled to be brave and make the best of things. Sorry, yawns. "I am quite ready to help you, and do all I can to serve you, madam," he said. "Only I beg you will be good enough to hide me from your husband, for I should not like to be eaten at all." "That's a good boy," said the giantess, nodding her head. "It is lucky for you that you did not scream out when you saw me, as the other boys who have been here did, for if you had done so my husband would have awakened and have eaten you, as he did them, for breakfast. Come here, child, go into my wardrobe. He never ventures to open that. You will be safe there." And she opened a huge wardrobe which stood in the great hall, and shut him into it. But the keyhole was so large that it admitted plenty of air, and he could see everything that took place through it. By and by he heard a heavy tramp on the stairs, like the lumbering along of a great cannon, and then a voice like thunder cried out, "Fe, fa, fee, fo, fum, I smell the breath of an Englishman. Let him be alive or let him be dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." That one piece does seem to last almost every time in these Jack and the Giant stories. Grind his bones to make my bread. I wonder why that's so significant. Anyway. "Wife," cried the giant, "there is a man in the castle. Let me have him for breakfast." "You are grown old and stupid," cried the lady in her loud tones. "It's only a nice fresh steak of an elephant that I have cooked for you, which you smell. There, sit down and make a good breakfast." And she placed a huge dish before him of savory, steaming meat, which greatly pleased him, and made him forget his idea of an Englishman being in the castle. Because he had a bone to pick with him, because it's a bone meal. Forget his idea of an Englishman being in the castle. When he had breakfasted, he went out for a walk, and then the giantess opened the door and made Jack come out to help her. He helped her all day. She fed him well, and when evening came, put him back in the wardrobe. Next chapter is The Hen That Lays Golden Eggs. Ooh. I have a feeling it's something to do with, like, when people were baking, they worried about what's this that goes in there. Someone decided, oh, that's, if you ground bones, you could do that and put it in bread or something. I don't know. It's a guess. It's a random guess of mine. And especially relevant if it was like one culture saw a culture that's kind of foreign to them do something that looked like that, and then they just decided, well, they eat people. And off you go. But anyway, it's an interesting piece of the lore. Yeast, maybe, but I don't think so, because the yeast would serve a duty, and you kind of need it. But I don't know. And certainly bones don't help. I don't. Do bones work as yeast? I don't think so. Never tried. Okay. Sorry. The hen that lays golden eggs. Anyway. Yes, yeast is used for bread, but you would need it consistently, and so the people that would be judging it would, it doesn't quite fit the narrative I have in my head for why. But anyway, the hen that lays golden eggs. The giant came in to supper. Jack watched him through the keyhole and was amazed to see him pick a wolf's bone and put half a fowl at a time into his capacious mouth. When the supper was ended, he bade his wife bring him his hen that laid the golden eggs. "It lays as well as it did when it belonged to that paltry knight," he said. "Indeed, I think the eggs are heavier than ever." The giantess went away and soon returned with a little brown hen, which she placed on the table before her husband. "And now, my dear," she said, "I am going for a walk, if you don't want me any longer." "Go," said the giant. I shall be glad to have a nap by and by." Then he took up the brown hen and said to her, "Lay," and she instantly laid a golden egg. "Lay," said the giant again, and she laid another. "Lay," he repeated it the third time, and again a golden egg lay on the table. Now Jack was sure this hen was that of which the fairy had spoken. By and by the giant put the hen down on the floor, and soon after went fast asleep, snoring so loud that it sounded like thunder. Directly Jack perceived that the giant was fast asleep, he pushed open the door of the wardrobe and crept out. Very softly he stole across the room, and picking up the hen, made haste to quit the apartment. He knew the way to the kitchen, the door of which he found was left ajar. He opened it, shut and locked it after him, and flew back to the beanstalk, which he descended as fast as his feet would move. When his mother saw him enter the house, she wept for joy, for she had feared that the fairies had carried him away, or that the giant had found him. Why didn't she tell him what was up there, since she knew? But Jack put the brown hen down before her, and told her how he had been in the giant's castle, and all his adventures. She was very glad to see the hen, which would make them rich once more. Or, more importantly, not starving. Okay. In the next chapter, the money bags. Jack made another journey up the beanstalk to the giant's castle one day while his mother had gone to market. But first he dyed his hair and disguised himself. The old woman did not know him again, and dragged him in as she had done before, to help her to do the work. But she heard her husband coming, and hid him in the wardrobe, not thinking that it was the same boy who had stolen the hen. She bade him stay quiet still there, where the giant would eat him. Then the giant came in, saying, "Fe fa fi fo fum. I smell the breath of an Englishman. Let him be alive or let him be dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." Why don't they use fun instead, so it rhymes better with Englishman? At least it's a little closer, you know? Anyway. "Nonsense," said the wife. "It is only a roasted bullock that I thought would be a tit-bit for your supper." A bullock that would be a tit-bit for your supper. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Okay. How does the breath of an Englishman smell? Well, I mean, the awful stereotype is that English people don't have good teeth. So theoretically, their dentistry being bad, their breath would probably smell bad. But I'm surprised that it's relevant. I'm more concerned about that. What does he smell like? Maybe it's because they keep eating the roses. Usually, I smell the flesh, is what they say. They in some way say that they smell the Englishman, but it's not consistently breath in the other stories. So, like, that's why I'm like, that one doesn't bug me as much. That changes a little bit. The fee-fi-fo-fum can change a bit. You know, this is fee-fa-fee-fo-fum. But, yeah, anyway. Okay. I'm gonna giggle about the balls as a tit thing for a while. But okay, sit down, and I will bring it up at once. The giant sat down, and soon his wife brought up a roasted bullock on a large dish. And they began their supper. Jack was amazed to see them pick the bones of the bullock as if it had been a lark. As soon as they had finished their meal, the giantess rose and said, "Now, my dear, with your leave, I am going up to my room to finish the story I am reading. If you want me, call for me." "First," answered the giant, "bring me my money bags, that I may count my golden pieces before I sleep." The giantess obeyed. She went and soon returned with 2 large bags over her shoulders. which she put down by her husband. Sorry, yawns. So they're big on her, over her shoulders. They're big. So they gotta be insanely big to Jack. Yet there, she said, that is all that is left of the knight's money. When you have spent it, you must go and take another baron's castle. Then he shan't, if I can help it, thought Jack. The giant, when his wife was gone, took out heaps and heaps of golden pieces and counted them, and put them in piles, till he was tired of amusement. Then he swept them all back into their bags, and leaning back in his chair, fell fast asleep, snoring so loud that no other sound was audible. Jack stole softly out of the wardrobe, and taking up the bags of money, which were his very own because the giant had stolen them from his father, he ran off, and with great difficulty, descending the beanstalk, laid the bags of gold on his mother's table. She had just returned from town, and was crying at not finding Jack. But here he is, already back. I do like this little twist. It's that they even added in brackets here, which were his very own, because the giant had stolen them from his father. It reads very much like someone told this version of Jack and the Beanstalk after they had told a version that didn't involve him owning anything. Like they told it that it was a little thief named Jack, and somebody was like, hey, that's not cool. And they're like, oh, yes, okay, I should change this so he was never a thief. I should add that and just tack that little bit on. Don't worry, it's actually his own stuff, so he's not a thief. I don't know what you're talking about. Shh. So I like that we're seeing it that way. There, mother, I have brought the gold that my father lost. Editors be like, yeah. But now I'm waiting for the rest of your message. There, mother, I have brought you the gold that my father lost. Oh, Jack, you are a very good boy, but I wish you would not risk your precious life in the giant's castle. Tell me how you came to go there again. And Jack told her all about it. Jack's mother was very glad to get the money, but she did not like him to run any risk for her. Yo, any bedtime stories? A rude large banana. Funny you ask. My last stream was partially bedtime stories. So, like the specific ones that are common for us to read for bedtime now. I have them prepped. I'm going to be posting it up on the YouTube so that you guys have the VODs. But for now, it's up on Twitch still probably, so you can watch it back. Otherwise, they're watchable tomorrow probably. After this stream, I'll be uploading the VODs. So there you go. Okay. Yes, she doesn't want him to risk anymore, but after a time, Jack made up his mind to go again to the giant's castle. And then the next chapter is the talking harp. So he climbed the beanstalk once more and blew the horn at the giant's gate. The giantess soon opened the door. She was very stupid and did not know him again. So, did he change his look or not? But anyway, last time he changed his look. But she stopped a minute before she took him in. She feared another robbery, but Jack's fresh face looked so innocent that she could not resist him. And so she bade him come in, and again hid him away in the wardrobe. Thank you for the follow, rude large banana. Thank you very much. Welcome in. Okay. He's in the wardrobe again. By and by, the giant came home, and as soon as he had crossed the threshold, he roared out, Fee fa, fee fo fum, I smell the breath of an Englishman. Let him be alive or let him be dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. You stupid old giant, said his wife, you only smell a nice sheep, which I have grilled for your dinner. And the giant sat down, and his wife brought up a whole sheep for his dinner. When he had eaten it all up, he said, Now bring me my harp, and I will have a little music while you take your walk. The giantess obeyed, and returned with a beautiful harp. I smell the feet of an Englishman. That would be his next edit. That would be why that changes. Editors. Make Jack not a thief. Change the little fee-fi-fo-fum thing, but don't make it actually rhyme. Don't do that. No, that's ridiculous. And make him smell feet. Okay, editor man. Fine. Banana. You cuties. Okay. Glad everybody knows each other. That's the positives of having Fett, who is everywhere all the time, and Cage pretty well the same. Okay. You stupid old giant. Giant sat down. Yes. Giantess obeyed and returned with a beautiful harp. The framework was all sparkling with diamonds and rubies, and the strings were all of gold. This is one of the nicest things I took from the knight, said the giant. I am very fond of music, and my harp is a faithful servant. So he drew the harp towards him. Sorry, yawns, double attack, my goodness. So he drew the harp towards him and said, Play. And the harp played a very soft, sad air. Play something merrier, said the giant, and the harp played a merry tune. Now play me a lullaby, roared the giant, and the harp played a sweet lullaby, to the sound of which its master fell asleep. Then Jack stole softly out of the wardrobe and went into the huge kitchen to see if the giantess had gone out. He found no one there, so he went to the door and opened it softly, for he thought he could not do so with the harp in his hand. Then he entered the giant's room and seized the harp and ran away with it. But as he jumped over the threshold, the harp called out, Master, master! And the giant woke up. With a tremendous roar, he sprang from his seat, and in 2 strides he had reached the door. But Jack was very nimble. He fled like lightning with the harp, talking to it as he went, for he saw it was a fairy, and telling it he was the son of its old master, the knight. Still the giant came on so fast that he was quite close to poor Jack, and had stretched out his great hand to catch him, but luckily, just at that moment he stepped on a loose stone, stumbled, and fell flat on the ground, where he lay at his full length. The accident gave Jack time to get on the beanstalk and hasten down it, but just as he reached their own garden, he beheld the giant descending after him. Mother, 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 cried Jack. Actually is what he says, but I think that's one of those times, we've seen it a couple times in the Red Fairy book, where I think they picked up on, after scanning a text or something, there was a line accidentally or something, and they picked up a letter I that probably wasn't actually there. Mother, mother, cried Jack, make haste and give me the axe. His mother ran to him with a hatchet in her hand, and Jack, with one tremendous blow, cut through all the beanstalks except one. Now, mother, stand out of the way, said he. And then it'll be the next chapter, but I'm going to take a second to catch up on all this. Wait, if rude is in your name, is me calling you friendly going to make you want to implode? No, I didn't choose this name. It chose me. I like to think I'm friendly. A rude large banana chose you. That's fun. I like when names choose you. I've heard the story of your name, and it's a good one. It's a good story. Very fond memory, so thank you. Well, now I want to know. I'm feeling left out. No, it sounds like it's fun. Keep it for yourselves if you'd like, but it sounds like fun. Next, yes, the next chapter was The Giant Breaks His Neck. It's okay. Somehow the boy has chopped through most of the beanstalk stuffs, and then he goes, do you want to hear the story? I love telling it. Heck yeah, type it all out, and then I'll read it, and then everybody else can hear it, because technically I won't hear it. I'll just get it. I have to run an ad soon, so I'm going to finish this story, and then we're going to read your story, and we'll have the brain cooperate. Then we'll have redeems. So also, if you want redeems and you don't have enough radioactive ribbits, enough channel points, and you're new, you can go ahead and drop in the chat, and if there's not too many disappointed redeems, I will do those too. But okay, where am I? Still got one more chapter-ish in the story. The giant breaks his neck. Yes. Jack's mother shrank back, and it was well she did so, for just as the giant took hold of the last branch of the beanstalk, Jack cut the stem quite through and darted from the spot. Down came the giant with a terrible crash, and as he fell on his head, he broke his neck and lay dead at the feet of the woman he had so much injured. Before Jack and his mother had recovered from their alarm and agitation, a beautiful lady stood before them. "Jack," said she, "you have acted like a brave knight's son, and deserve to have your inheritance restored to you. Dig a grave and bury the giant, and then go and kill the giantess." But, said Jack, "I could not kill anyone unless I were fighting with him, and I could not draw my sword upon a woman. Moreover, the giantess was very kind to me." The fairy smiled on Jack. "I am very much pleased with your generous feelings," she said. "Nevertheless, return to the castle and act as you will find needful." Jack asked the fairy if she would show him the way to the castle, as the beanstalk was now down. She told him that she would drive him there in her chariot, which was drawn by 2 peacocks. Jack thanked her and sat down in the chariot with her. The fairy drove him a long distance round till they reached a village which lay at the bottom of the hill. Here they found a number of miserable-looking men assembled. The fairy stopped her carriage and addressed them. "My friends," said she, "the cruel giant who oppressed you and ate up all your flocks and herds is dead, and this young gentleman was the means of your being delivered from him, and is the son of your old master, the knight." The men gave a loud cheer at these words, and pressed forward to say that they would serve Jack as faithfully as they had served his father. The fairy bade them follow her to the castle, and they marched thither in a body, and Jack blew the horn and demanded admittance. The old giantess saw them coming from the turret loophole. She was very much frightened, for she guessed that something had happened to her husband, and she came downstairs very fast. And as she came downstairs very fast, she caught her foot in her dress and fell from the top to the bottom and broke her neck. So, another, "Oh, they died. I didn't do it." But okay. When the people outside found that the door was not open to them, they took crowbars and forced the portal. Nobody was to be seen, but on leaving the hall they found the body of the giantess at the foot of the stairs. Thus Jack took possession of the castle. The fairy went and brought his mother to him with the hen and the harp. He had the giantess buried, and endeavored as much as lay in his power to do right to those whom the giant had robbed. A little piece of me wonders, did the fairy make sure that she caught her foot in her dress? Did the fairy make sure that the giantess died? Because I feel like that might be it. Anyway, before her departure for Fairyland, the fairy explained to Jack that she had sent the butcher to meet him with the beans, in order to try what sort of lad he was. Does that mean that the cow lived? Huh? If you had looked at the gigantic beanstalk and only stupidly wondered about it, she said, I should have left you where misfortune had placed you, only restoring her cow to your mother. But you showed an inquiring hand. Okay, so she would have gotten the cow back if he did nothing about the beanstalk. What if he never planted the beans? What if he just ate the beans? What then? Okay, but you showed an inquiring mind and great courage and enterprise. Therefore you deserve to rise, and when you mounted the beanstalk, you climbed the ladder of fortune. Ladder and fortune capitalized. She then took her leave of Jack and his mother, and I suppose they lived happily for however long that was necessary. Okay, that was the end of Jack and the Beanstalk. But now, okay, a rude large banana, your story. So a few years ago on Halloween, me and my friends decided to go to a party. I was wearing one of those cheap banana costumes. For context, I'm 6'5". This will be important later. After a night of hijinks, this hijinks and tomfoolery. There you go. Me and my friends were quite inebriated and decided to walk home. As we were walking, we were being pretty loud at like 3 a.m., not gonna lie, but we made it home. After we woke up, our friend's mom showed us a Facebook post with Ring doorbell footage of us walking down the street, and it said, "Watch out for a group of hooligans accompanied by a rude large banana." The end. Perfect. I love it. Okay, ad. An ad is going to be running now. The timer ran out. But that sounds very fun. Imagine that at the end of the story, Jack meets Jack the Hedgehog. I want Jack the Hedgehog to like just show up in a bunch of different stories wherever he doesn't belong because he's just such a. And what the hell is that? Jack the Hedgehog says, "I'm putting together a team. Have you heard of the Jack VG Avenger Jack Venger?" I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Initiative. Now that would be an epic crossover, ginormous magnitude. And then he's gonna have to get Jack Be Nimble Jack as well. So that would be somebody. And there's more of these old fairy tales, kind of like Jack the Hedgehog, where they're all named Jack. Jack is a fairly common one with them. So there would be enough of them. It would be something. Okay, I'm gonna put that away. What other histories with Jacks are there? None of them specifically pop out, but I could have sworn that there are other shorts, like other stories like this, that have a Jack in here or there. Like, and the father was named Jack, and that's Jack Reaper. But yeah, there's various little things. Okay. Oh, this is a long one. I think we want to go with a slightly shorter one. Maybe? That is even longer. Goodness. Got a couple of long ones for the next streams. You're not much shorter. Oh, that's very short. That's unhelpful in the other direction. Oh my goodness. Okay. You know what? We need to make a list and read them in a single stream. Maybe next April Fool's for the anniversary of the channel, maybe? Ooh. To go back through all of the Jacks. I'd have to reread things to make sure I know when the Jacks are. But we could definitely go back to every one that has Jack in the title. And then try and find other Jacks. But, yeah. Okay. We'll have to keep track of did that one have a Jack or not from here on out. If that's what we do. But okay. I think I will go ahead with the one that I thought was long. Oh well, it's long. We'll live with it. We'll finish it off. The Little Good Mouse is the next story. But first, we have some redeems. Ooh, okay, we'll start with this hydrate. That's a quick and easy one. And now, no, you go away. Here we are. Okay. Humming. All right, and now Singing Frog returning again. the, the singing frog is a starring role in my streams every time. Okay, here we go. All right, and then it's scissor snips. Another classic. Here we go. Okay, I have scissors. All right, here we go with this. There was a cat that swallowed a ball of yarn, and when it had kittens, they all had sweaters on. Your triggers are always so silly, Bratty. I always love seeing them to giggle at. Okay, and now brushes. And then we'll jump into the long story, and then we'll probably be wrapping up. Probably if it might be redeems, it might not, before we have to wrap up. But okay, brushes. It's also the story of Jack Frost and the story of the jack-o'-lantern. Oh yes, I have not come upon those in this collection though, as of yet. We can get all the jacks together though. Okay, brushes. Alright. Alright. Okay. Oh no, wait. I like to bring up the sound so that you can hear it better. And it's a little bit loud. Okay, here we go. Or the mic will fall over for whatever reason. Sorry. Okay.
Alright. And then I get sniffs. Mm. Alright. And now I'll go back to the last story. Woo-doo-doo-doo. Thank you for that. I realized that I missed also, you meant Jack the Ripper from England instead of Reaper. My brain knew that, and then I didn't say that, but I missed the little violence. I'm here for Lahonk's little violence, and I missed that one. So I had to go back and see it. Okay. This is the little good mouse. Maybe this is where Stuart Little comes from? Alright. Here we go. I'm glad I bring a smile to you, Brady. Thank you. Yes. I mostly am like, people could be requesting I say anything, and I'll turn down if it's something that I'm not comfortable with. But you always are just like, and I'm going to make you say something, ? That's just like, what is that? Okay. All right. I'm here for it. It's very wholesome and fun. Very goofy. I like a good, chaotic good. Okay. The Little Good Mouse. That's what we're reading. All right. Last one for the night, probably. Almost definitely. All right. Once upon a time there lived a king and queen who loved each other so much that they were never happy unless they were together. Day after day they went out hunting or fishing. Night after night they went to balls or to the opera. They sang and danced and ate sugar plums and were the gayest of gay. And all their subjects followed their examples so that the kingdom was called the Joyous Land. Ooh. Now in the next kingdom, everything was different as it could possibly be. The king was sulky and savage and never enjoyed himself at all. Jack from Jack and Jill. Yes, definitely. Now the next year, everything was never enjoyed himself at all. He looked so ugly and cross that all his subjects feared him, and he hated the very sight of a cheerful noise. So if he ever caught anyone smiling, he had his head cut off that very minute. This kingdom was very appropriately called the Land of Tears. I'm noting that there is no queen, as far as we know, in the Land of Tears, but okay. Now when this wicked king heard of the happiness of the jolly king, he was so jealous that he collected a great army and set out to fight him. And the news of his approach was soon brought to the king and queen. The queen, when she heard of it, was frightened out of her wits and began to cry bitterly. "Sire," she said, "let us collect all our riches and run away as far as ever we can to the opposite side of the world." But the king answered, "Fie, madam, I am far too brave for that. It is better to die than to be a coward." Then he assembled all his armed men, and after bidding the queen a tender farewell, he mounted his splendid horse and rode away. When he was lost to sight, the queen could do nothing but weep and wring her hands and cry.
Alas, if the king is killed, what will become of me and my little daughter?" And she was so sorrowful that she could neither eat nor sleep. The king sent her a letter every day, but at last one morning, as she looked out of the palace window, she saw a messenger approaching in hot haste. "Oh no! What news, courier, what news?" cried the queen, and he answered, "The battle is lost and the king is dead, and in another moment the enemy will be here." Oh. The poor queen fell back insensible, and all her ladies carried her to bed. Okay. They carried her to bed and stood round her weeping and wailing. Then began a tremendous noise and confusion, and they knew that the enemy had arrived, and very soon they heard the king himself stamping about the palace seeking the queen. Then her ladies put the little princess into her arms, and covered her up, head and all, in the bedclothes, and ran for their lives. And the poor queen lay there shaking and hoping she would not be found. But very soon the wicked king clattered into the room, and in a fury because the queen would not answer when he called to her, he tore back her silken coverings and tweaked off her lace cap, and when all her lovely hair came tumbling down over his shoulders, he wound it 3 times round his hand and threw her over his shoulder. Oh my gosh! Where he carried her like a sack of flour. Jesus! The poor queen held her daughter safe in her arms and shrieked for mercy, but the wicked king only mocked her and begged her to go on shrieking as it amused him, and so mounted his great black horse and rode back to his own country. When he got there, he declared that he would have the queen and the little princess hanged on the nearest tree, but his courtiers said that seemed a pity, for when the baby grew up she would be a very nice wife for the king's only son. Okay, whoa. Maybe he's so sad because he lost his queen. I don't know. The king was rather pleased with this idea, and shut the queen up in the highest room of a tall tower, which was very tiny, and miserably furnished with a table and a very hard bed upon the floor. Then he sent for a fairy who lived near his kingdom, and after receiving her with more politeness than he generally showed, and entertaining her at a sumptuous feast, he took her up to see the queen. The fairy was so touched by the sight of her misery that when she kissed her hand she whispered, "Courage, madam. I think I see a way to help you." Ooh, I hope. The queen, a little comforted by these words, received her graciously, and begged her to take pity upon the poor little princess who had met with such a sudden reverse of fortune. But the king got very cross when he saw them whispering together, and cried harshly, "Make an end of these fine speeches, madam. I brought you here to tell me if the child would grow up pretty and fortunate." Then the fairy answered that the princess would be as pretty and clever and well brought up as it was possible to be, and the old king growled to the queen that it was lucky for her that it was so, as they would certainly have been hanged if it were otherwise. Then he stamped off, taking the fairy with him and leaving the poor queen in tears. How can I wish my little daughter to grow up pretty if she is to be married to that horrid little dwarf, the king's son?" she said to herself, "and yet, if she is ugly, we shall both be killed. If I could only hide her away somewhere, so that the cruel king could never find her." Why do we hate on the prince? Is he bad? As far as we know, he's just related to the bad guy. That's all we know. As the day went on, the queen and the little princess grew thinner and thinner, for their hard-hearted jailer gave them every day only 3 boiled peas and a tiny morsel of black bread, so they were always terribly hungry. At last one evening, as the queen sat at her spinning wheel, for the king was so Stingy Jack's Story of the Jack-o'-lantern, Swansea Jack's Story of a Doggo. Sounds fun. These went on. Boiled peas, sat at her spinning wheel, for the king was so very avaricious, that's what it was. My brain was like, I don't know what's going on. That she was made to work day and night. She saw a tiny, pretty little mouse creep out of a hole, and said to it, "Alas, creature, what are you coming to look for here? I only have 3 peas for my day's provision, so unless you wish to fast, you must go elsewhere. Is this where we get the helpful mice in the Cinderella story? Where was I? Must go elsewhere. But the mouse ran hither and thither, and danced and capered so prettily that at last the queen gave it her last pea, which she was keeping for her supper, saying, "Here, little one, eat it up. I have nothing better to offer you, but I give this willingly in return for the amusement I have had from you." She had hardly spoken when she saw upon the table a delicious roast porridge, and 2 dishes of preserved fruit. "Truly," said she, "a kind action never goes unrewarded." And she and the little princess ate their supper with great satisfaction. And then the queen gave what was left to the little mouse, who danced better than ever afterwards. The next morning came the jailer with the queen's allowance of 3 peas, which he brought in upon a large dish to make them look smaller. But as soon as he set it down, the little mouse came and ate up all 3, so that when the queen wanted her dinner there was nothing left for her. Then she was quite provoked and said, "What a bad little beast that mouse must be! If it goes on like this, I shall be starved." But when she glanced at the dish again, it was covered with all sorts of nice things to eat, and the queen made a very good dinner, and was gayer than usual over it. But afterwards, as she sat at her spinning wheel, she began to consider what would happen if the little princess did not grow up pretty enough to please the king. And she said to herself, "Oh, if I could only think of some way of escaping." Oh, now there's even more Jacks. The story of the Nightmare Before Christmas with Jack Skellington. Yes, although that one won't be this. Just Jack from Just Jack, a series of book stories with Just Jack as the protagonist. Yeah, I bet that guy would fit in pretty well. As she spoke, she saw the little mouse playing in a corner with some long straws. The queen took them and began to plait them, saying, "If only I had straws enough, I would make a basket with them, and let my baby down in it from the window to any kind passer-by who would take care of her." By the time the straws were all plaited, the little mouse had dragged in more and more, until the queen had plenty to make her basket, and she worked at it day and night, while the little mouse danced for her amusement. And at dinner and supper time the queen gave it the 3 peas and the bit of black bread, and always found something good in the dish in their place. She really could not imagine where all the nice things came from. At last, one day, when the basket was finished, the queen was looking out of the window to see how long a cord she must make to lower it from the bottom of to the bottom of the tower, when she noticed a little old woman who was leaning upon her stick and looking up at her. Presently she said, "I know your trouble, madam. If you like, I will help you." I have a feeling this is all the fairies doing that came and visited. "Oh, my dear friend," said the queen, "if you really wish to be of use to me, you will come at the time that I will appoint, and I will let down my poor little baby in a basket. If you will take her and bring her up for me, when I am rich, I will reward you splendidly." I have a feeling, like, why wouldn't he kill you when the baby is gone? Right? No? Okay. But fine. "I don't care about the reward," said the old woman, "but there is one thing I should like. You must know that I am very particular about what I eat, and if there is one thing that I fancy above all others, it is a plump, tender little mouse. If there is such a thing in your garret, throw it down to me, and in return I will promise that your little daughter shall be well taken care of." Ooh. Are you going to betray your one nice mouse? The queen, when she had heard this, began to cry, but made no answer. And the old woman, after waiting a few minutes, asked her what was the matter. "Why," said the queen, "there is only one mouse in this garret, and that is such a dear, pretty little thing that I cannot bear to think of its being killed." "What!" cried the old woman in a rage, "do you care more for a miserable mouse than for your own baby? Good-bye, madam. I leave you to enjoy its company, and for my own part I thank my stars that I can get plenty of mice without troubling you to give them to me." And she hobbled off, grumbling and growling. As to the queen, she was so disappointed that, in spite of finding a better dinner than usual, yes, Protect the little mouse soldier. He's helping you out, lady. Um, da, 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 da. Seeing the little mouse dancing in its merriest mood, she could do nothing but cry. So that night, when her baby was fast asleep, she packed it into the basket and wrote on a slip of paper, "This unhappy little girl is called Delicia." This she pinned to its robe, and then very sadly she was shutting the basket, when in sprang the little mouse and sat on the baby's pillow. "Ah, little one," said the queen, "it cost me dear to save your life. How shall I know now whether my Delicia is being taken care of or no? Anyone else would have let the greedy old woman have you and eat you up, but I could not bear to do it." Whereupon the mouse answered, "Believe me, madam, you will never repent of your kindness." Hey! The queen was immensely astonished when the mouse began to speak. I love when they when they address that. It's impressive that the animals talk. I like when they actually are like, "Oh, hey, what the fuck?" Oh, there's also Hey Jack from a series of slice of life books starring Jack as Hey Jack as the protagonist. Of course there is. Okay. Struck and still more so when she saw its little sharp nose turn into a beautiful face, and its paws to hands and feet, and then it suddenly grew tall, and the queen recognized the fairy who had come with the wicked king to visit her. I knew it. The fairy smiled at her astonished look and said, "I wanted to see if you were faithful and capable of feeling a real friendship for me, for you see we fairies are rich in everything but friends, and those are hard to find." "It is not possible that you should want for friends, you charming creature," said the queen, kissing her. "Indeed it is so," the fairy said. "For those who are only friendly with me for their own advantage, I do not count at all. But when you cared for the poor little mouse, you could not have known there was anything to be gained by it. And to try you further, I took the form of the old woman whom you talked to from the window. And then I was convinced that you really loved me." Then, turning to the little princess, she kissed her rosy lips 3 times, saying, "Dear little one, I promise that you shall be richer than your father, shall live 100 years, always pretty and happy, without fear of old age and wrinkles." So she'll live 100 years and never age? Is that good? Okay, the queen, quite delighted, thanked the fairy gratefully, and begged her to take charge of the little Delicia and bring her up as her own daughter. This she agreed to do, and then they shut the basket and lowered it carefully, baby and all, to the ground at the foot of the tower. The fairy then changed herself back into the form of a mouse, and this delayed her a few seconds, after which she ran nimbly down the straw rope, but only to find, when she got to the bottom, that the baby had disappeared. Oh no. In the greatest terror she ran up to the queen, crying, "All is lost. My enemy, Canceline, has stolen the princess away. You must know that she is a cruel fairy who hates me, and as she is older than I am and has more power, I can do nothing against her. I know no way of rescuing Delicia from her clutches." Could you not have, could you not have changed into the mouse first and then got down? You could have avoided this. Anyway. When the queen heard this terrible news, she was heartbroken and begged the fairy to do all she could to get the poor little princess back again. At this moment in came the jailer, and when he missed the little princess, he at once told the king, who came in a great fury, asking what the queen had done with her. She answered that a fairy, whose name she did not know, had come and carried her off by force. Upon this the king stamped upon the ground and cried in a terrible voice, "You shall be hanged. I always told you you should." And without another word he dragged the unlucky queen out into the nearest wood and climbed up into a tree to look for a branch to which he should hang her. But when he was quite high up, the fairy, who had made herself invisible and followed them, gave him a sudden push, which made him lose his footing and fall to the ground with a crash and break 4 of his teeth. And while he was trying to mend them, the fairy carried the queen off in her flying chariot to a beautiful castle, where she was so kind to her that before the loss of Delicia the queen would have been perfectly happy. But though the good little mouse did her very utmost, They could not find out where Canceline had hidden the little princess. Thus 15 years went by, and the queen had somewhat recovered from her grief, when the news reached her that the son of the wicked king wished to marry the little maiden who kept the turkeys, and that she had refused him. The wedding dresses had been made, nevertheless, and the festivities were to be so splendid that all the people for leagues round were flocked to be present at them. So there was a girl that was in charge of the turkeys, and she refused to be married, but everybody went ahead with planning and doing stuff for it anyway. Lovely. Who cares about consent? Perfect. And everybody's coming around to see it. The queen felt quite curious about a little turkey maiden who did not wish to be a queen, so the little mouse conveyed herself to the poultry yard to find out what she was like. She found the turkey maiden sitting upon a big stone, barefooted and miserably dressed in an old coarse linen gown and cap. The ground at her feet was all strewn with robes of gold and silver, ribbons and laces, diamonds and pearls, over which the turkeys were stalking to and fro, while the king's ugly, disagreeable son stood opposite her, declaring angrily that if she would not marry him, she would be killed. Okay, so he did. He was an acorn falling not far from his father's tree, but fine. The turkey maiden answered proudly, "I never will marry you. Okay, so I think this line should have been a period or something. I don't know. I never will marry you. You are. It's a little bit goofy. I think it's, I never will marry you. You are too ugly and too much like your cruel father. Again, they had the little I. There must have been a line or crease just barely on the paper when scanned or something. And here we are. Anyway, leave me in peace with my turkeys, which I like far better than all your fine gifts." The little mouse watched her with the greatest admiration, for she was as beautiful as the spring. And as soon as the wicked prince was gone, she took the form of an old peasant woman and said to her, "Good day, my pretty one. You have a fine flock of turkeys there." The young turkey maiden turned her gentle eyes upon the old woman and answered, "Yet they wish me to leave them to become a miserable queen. What is your advice upon the matter?" "My child," said the fairy, "a crown is a very pretty thing, but you know neither the price nor the weight of it." "I know so well that I have refused to wear one," said the little maiden, "though I don't know who was my father or who was my mother, and I have not a friend in the world." "You have a goodness and beauty which are of more value than 10 kingdoms," said the wise fairy. "But tell me, child, how came you here, and how is it you have neither father nor mother nor friend?" "A fairy called Canceline is the cause of my being here," answered she, "for while I lived with her I got nothing but blows and harsh words, until at last I could bear it no longer, and ran away from her without her knowing where I was going. And as I came through a wood, the wicked prince met me, and offered to give me charge of the poultry yard. I accepted gladly, not knowing that I should have to see him day by day. And now he wants to marry me, but that I will never consent to." Upon hearing this, the fairy became convinced that the little turkey maiden was none other than the Princess Delicia. "What is your name, my little one?" said she. Which I gotta wonder, did Canceline overhear them and hear that her name is Delicia? Did the girl just know in her soul that's what she was called? Or did she still have the pin on her frock? I don't know. "I'm called Delicia, if it please you," she answered. Then the fairy threw her arms around the princess's neck and nearly smothered her with kisses, saying, "Ah, Delicia, I am a very old friend of yours, and I am very glad to find you at last. But you might look nicer than you do in that old gown, which is only fit for a kitchen maid. Take this pretty dress, and let us see the difference it will make." So Delicia took off the ugly cap, and shook out all her fair shining hair, and bathed her hands and face in clean water from the nearest spring till her cheeks were like roses. And when she was adorned with the diamonds and the splendid robe the fairy had given her, she looked the most beautiful princess in the world. And the fairy, with great delight, cried, "Now you look as you ought to look, Delicia. What do you think about yourself?" And Delicia answered, "I feel as if I were the daughter of some great king." "And would you be glad if you were?" said the fairy. "Indeed I should," answered she. "Ah, well," said the fairy, "tomorrow I may have some pleasant news for you." You're not going to tell her now? So she hurried back to her castle, where the queen sat busy with her embroidery, and cried, "Well, madam, will you wager your thimble and your golden needle that I am bringing you the best news you could possibly hear?" "Alas," sighed the queen, "since the death of the jolly king and the loss of my Delicia, all the news in the world is not worth a pin to me." Well. Oh, the worst she can say is no. What she said, "Nah, bro, you tripping. Your hair, whack, your drip, whack, your J's, whack." In this case, it was this man found a woman in the woods, said, "Here, have a job. I want you near me always and never leave me, and soon I'll force you to marry me, even when you say no. I don't care." So, a little different. just a little different. Anyway, okay. "I have no need for the pin, right? There, there, don't be melancholy," said the fairy. "I assure you the princess is quite well, and I have never seen her equal for beauty. She might be a queen tomorrow if she chose." And then she told all that had happened, and the queen first rejoiced over the thought of Delicia's beauty, and then wept at the idea of her being a turkey maiden. Hey, she had a job and she was happy. Why you gotta be sad? "I will not hear of her being made to marry the wicked king's son. That I will agree. That is sad," she said. Let us go at once and bring her here." In the meantime, the wicked prince, who was very much angry with Delicia, had sat himself down under a tree, and cried and howled with rage and spite until the king heard him, and cried out from the window, "What is the matter with you, that you are making all this disturbance?" The prince replied, "It is all because our turkey maiden will not love me." "Won't love you, eh?" said the king. "We'll very soon see about that." So he called his guards and told them to go and fetch Delicia. "See if I don't make her change her mind pretty soon," said the wicked king with a chuckle. Then the guards began to search the poultry yard and could not find nobody there but Delicia, who, with her splendid dress and her crown of diamonds, looked such a lovely princess that they hardly dared to speak to her. But she said to them very politely, "Pray tell me, what are you looking for here?" Madam," they answered, "we are sent for an insignificant little person called Delicia." "Alas," said she, "that is my name. What can you want with me?" By Delicia. So the guards tied her hands and feet with thick ropes, for fear she might run away, and brought her to the king, who was waiting with his son. If only she had said, "Oh yeah, I guess she left. I'm just this other person that..." You could have got away. Anyway. Okay. When he saw her, he was very much astonished at her beauty, which would have made anyone less hard-hearted sorry for her. But the wicked king only laughed and mocked at her, and cried, "Well, little fright, little toad, why don't you love my son, who is far too handsome and too good for you? Make haste and begin to love him this instant, or you shall be tarred and feathered." Then the poor little princess, shaking with terror, went down on her knees, crying, "Oh, don't tar and feather me, please. It would be so uncomfortable. Let me have 2 or 3 days to make up my mind, and then you shall do as you like with me." The wicked prince would have liked very much to see her tarred and feathered, but the king ordered that she should be shut up in a dark dungeon. It was just at this moment that the queen and the fairy arrived in the flying chariot, and the queen was dreadfully distressed at the turn affairs had taken. There you go. And said miserably that she was destined to be unfortunate all her days. But the fairy bade her take courage. "I'll pay them out yet," said she, nodding her head with an air of great determination. That very same night, as soon as the wicked king had gone to bed, the fairy changed herself into the little mouse, and creeping up onto the pillow, nibbled his ear, so that he squealed out quite loudly, and turned over on his other side. But that was no good, for the little mouse only set to work and gnawed away at the second ear until it hurt more than the first one. Then the king cried, "Murder and thieves!" and all his guards ran to see what was the matter, but they could find nothing and nobody, for the little mouse had run off into the prince's room, and was serving him in exactly the same way. All night long she ran from one to the other until at last, driven quite frantic by terror and want of sleep, the king rushed out of the palace crying, "Help, help, I am pursued by rats." The prince, when he heard this, got up also and ran after the king. And they had not gone far when they both fell into the river and were never heard of again. Ah, lovely. Then the good fairy ran to tell the queen, and they went together to the black dungeon where Delicia was imprisoned. The fairy touched each door with her wand, and it sprang open instantly. But they had to go through 40 before they came to the princess, who was sitting on the floor looking very dejected. But when the queen rushed in and kissed her 20 times in a minute, and laughed and cried, and told Delicia all her history, the princess was wild with delight. Then the fairy showed her all the wonderful dresses and jewels she had brought for her, and said, "Don't let us waste time. We must go and harangue the people." This is cute. I'm pursued by rats. And yes, Cage, dropping the rats. Good. And now, just like the family reunited, mother and daughter back together. Lovely. Okay, so they gotta go tell the people. So she walked first, looking very serious and dignified, and wearing a dress the train of which was at least 10 ells long. Behind her came the queen, wearing a blue velvet robe, embroidered with gold, and a diamond crown that was brighter than the sun itself. Last of all walked Delicia, who was so beautiful that it was nothing short of marvelous. "Help, the rats are chasing me." Sorry. No, it's good. And the rats said, "Nah, dude, we're fun. Help us, chase him." Well, roughly. The rat came out and said, "Hey, here are the ladies instead." Okay. They proceeded through the streets, returning the salutations of all they met, great or small, and all the people turned and followed them, wondering who these noble ladies could be. Nobody recognized the queen, the gayest of gay queen? No? Okay. When the audience hall was quite full, the fairy said to the subjects of the wicked king that if they would accept Delicia, who was daughter of the jolly king, as their queen, she would undertake to find a suitable husband for her, and would promise that during their reign there should be nothing but rejoicing and merrymaking, and all dismal things should be entirely banished. Upon this the people cried with one accord, "We will, we will. We have been gloomy and miserable too long already." And they all took hands and danced round the queen and Delicia and the good fairy, singing, "Yes, yes, we will, we will." Then there were feasts and fireworks in every street in the town, and early the next morning the fairy, who had been all over the world in the night, brought back with her in the flying chariot the most handsome and good-tempered prince she could find anywhere. He was so charming that Delicia loved him for the moment their eyes met, and as for him, of course he could not help thinking himself the luckiest prince in all the world. Well, we could have had a happy ending without a prince, but, I guess they would have been like, "No, you have to have a man to rule." Because that's what she had to say. "If you like her, we'll find a dude, don't worry." But, could we not have done just, let her be in charge? Anyway, the queen felt that she had already come to the end of her misfortunes at last, and they all lived happily ever after. Yay! I like this one. For the most part, good time. All right. That is the last of the stories. Boop, boop. We can do some redeems, but then I will want to raid over. If Vi is still streaming, we'll raid over to Vi. But if not, we'll find somebody to raid to. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Oh, yes. Oh, the springs. I had a good springs earlier. And I hope you enjoyed seeing my little frog on my head. I have a little buddy on my head. I'm very glad I added the little frogs. I have more story of them eventually. All right. Springs. Okay. These are words. What are words? Okay. Here we go with the springs, though. These. Mic, springs, reverb. Those are words. They don't sound like they're a thing, do they? You'll see. Okay.
What's that? It's a bit goofy, but yeah. Woo! Okay, we need to move the things. Okay, so we did the Mike Springs. We're gonna do card dealing. We're gonna do page flipping. Trigger word. Can you can a can as a canner can a can? Can you can a can as a canner can a can? Can you can a can as a canner can a can? Got that one pretty quick. Cage flipping? What? I said page flipping. Page. I'm sorry. But we do need to, I was trying to do that quickly. Someone, an anonymous gifter, gifted a sub to Bratty. So we need to do what we do to someone that has done a gift. Don't we? I think we do. I think we does. How did no one else? Come along. Come on. Gift. Yay! Hey! Another one! Okay, so we do more. Thank you for those gifts! Thank you very much. That is very nice. Very nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Oh. And everybody's following the tradition. So now that you're new to it, Ari and her autism, if you're still here, maybe you're not, but hopefully, yeah, we drop our rain and money frogs whenever someone's been gifted a gift of some sort. If they give it to me with the bits or the throne, or if they do it for subs, we gotta do rain and money frogs. Just such a gorgeous gift. Fett did so good making this. Anyway, okay. All right. Now I will move on to card dealing and then page flipping. I'm not trying. Okay, card dealing. It is a very clean loop. It's very good. Okay. we go with the card dealing. You just noticed the frog on my head. You just noticed. Okay. I'm going to do a quick page flipping, and that's going to be it. Can someone check if... I don't think she would be. I don't think Vi's still streaming. I think she would be done. But I want to check if she is. I'm going to do my page flipping now. Alright. Here we go. Here we go. First little book. And the other book. Yeah, that's roughly what the frog sees. Okay, go. Okay. And that was our last redeem. Alright. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow doing pretty well the same thing. Maybe it'll be SCPs tomorrow for the first one, since I'm pretty well out of the bedtime poetry recommendations now, but it's gonna go back to the recommendations for the first stream, and then Fairytales for the evening again. But thank you very much for being here. Thanks for watching. And yes, if we don't have Vi to go to, who shall we raid to? Vi. Perfect. Okay. If we don't have Vi, then I don't know. What? Yeah, she's still going. Okay, here we go. Who else would we go to? It's Vi. Oh God, it's all the scrungles. I'm scared. There's a hot dog? Oh goodness. This is gonna be fun. Okay. Oh, prep for Frau grade messages. I gotta copy my Frau grade message. Ah! Let me copy the message. Stop being mean. It's not working. I can't get to it. Let me copy the paste. The thing's in the way. Ah! Posting it again is not helping as much as I want that to work.
Let me copy. Oh, there. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, we raid now. Sorry, technical issues. Oh, she's showing it off. Oh my gosh. Okay, so she has art. Okay, we're going now. Whee! You'll see. Okay, good night, everybody. Thanks for being here. Ah, we raid.